Let me show you how I create monorepos in 2026. So I work with monorepos a lot, and I believe most people do also because we are in the time of AI and AI agents and LLMs and automations and just giving agents access to our code bases to let them work. Most times you guide them, most times you just leave them for basic stuff to just do their stuff and do their work and come back and check the result. So it's desirable these days to have monorepos as compared to like splitting your work between different repositories for teams to work on. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I set up a monorepo project that you can also use in production, like production grade monorepo projects. That's basically what I'm going to be showing you today. So I'll show you different methods of doing these things, but to make it work. So the idea is this should be able to cover whether you have an existing project or whether you're starting a new project. I'm just going to walk through everything basically. So let's jump right into it. So the first thing I always do is I always create a directory, call it apps. So apps is where all my applications always live. Then also I have another one called packages. So packages are basically where I have um internal packages. I call them internal packages because they are packages that I want, or let me say they are shared libraries, but I don't call them shared because they are only used by the applications. Shared libraries are the ones that are used by both the applications and let's say the front end, the mobile, the web, then the server, the back end logic. So all of those can have a shared folder. But in this case, I'm not calling it shared because they are packages that are going to be used by the client side, basically. And then I'm splitting it by client side and server side. So in this case, all the client side applications like the mobile will live here. So I'll create another one called mobile, and then I'll create another one here called. So I'm going to create a directory, not a file. So I'll create a directory and call it web, right? So in this case, I have a mobile and a web directory that are being used by both of them. So what I'm going to do here is in the packages, this is going to be where all my mobile applications stay. In case I'm building for an iOS or Android native, or I'm deciding to use a library like Expo, right? So if I'm using the Expo, then I don't need to bother about iOS native, Android native, or extensions basically. So for web, I may decide to have like actual web applications or extensions even here. So, but in this case, it's just going to be web to keep it simple, but still make it usable in any setting. So in my packages is going to be my backend and my database logic. So in this case, I'm going to go with a package called Convex. If you're familiar with Convex, Convex provides you access to both the server side and the DB side of your project. What I'm going to do first of all is to start with the mobile, then the web. So first thing I'm going to do is go install my Expo application since I want to start with that. So for my Expo application, I'm going to just call it. So I'm going to call it. What name should I give it? Let's call it empty app. Yeah, empty app is fine because we're using a monorepo template. So let's call it empty app. Right. Let me say copy lamps. No, let me call it empty apps. Empty app is fine. So because this is an application. So the reason for this having a nested directory here is because I don't want to use npm install, is because you might want to have something like a, why did I install it? Oh, sheesh. Okay. So I'll just move it into this place, right? I'll install it into here. So the reason for this is because if you want to have like the iOS native application, Android native application, you can have everything in the mobile directory. So everybody that sees mobile knows that okay, this is mobile, and then you can use it directly like that. So you can have that if you have teams that are working on different native implementations for your app. So you can have empty Android, empty iOS in the mobile directory. So the same applies to the web. For the web, you can decide to have like the typical web and then the extension also in the web directory. It just depends on how you want to structure it. But I will explain how the structuring of your um folders doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It just depends on preference, but this is my own preference, so that's why I'm using this to explain to you guys. So for the web, I'm going to stick to using React router. Yeah, so I'm going to pick from React router and just copy this. So I'm going to be using the same name as what I use for the web. So in this case, I'm going to cd into mobile, which is what I should have done before. I'm going to cd into apps web, and then I'm going to create let me clear this. I'm going to, currently there's nothing in the web, you can see it's empty. So I'm going to paste what we just copied from React Router, but the name is going to be empty web because we're using it as that. So empty is just the name of the application. In this case, I call it Monorepo, empty from Monorepo template. So it doesn't really matter what you call yours, is your choice. So create a new Git repository, yes. With npm, no. I'm going to use a pnpm. So because I want to create a workspace with pnpm, so it's easier to do that. So currently we have that also. If you check ls now, you can see we have empty web. If you cd to empty web And with ls you can see what we have. So we have all the stuff from React Router, and so we have everything done currently. So we have our web application, we have our mobile application, so we can test it out, right? We can test it out. And before we test it out, we need to install, right? Because if not installed for any of them, you can see there's no node modules anywhere, so which is intended. So if you're working with an existing application, it's just a case of copying and pasting, like you saw me copy from empty app into the mobile directory. It's still the same thing. You can just copy and paste, or if you're starting a new application, you can go with this approach. So the next thing I'm going to do is set up convex. So to set up convex, we go to convex also, copy this. So we just go into convex. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cd into packages, and I will paste this command into that place. It will ask me for the name of the application, which I'm going to call empty convex also, because you know what? In this case, I'm going to do something. I'm going to call it empty convex. There's something I shouldn't have done here. I will explain why. So I'm just going to show you guys how this works in the real setting. So I'm going to make mistakes to show you how I tackle the mistakes too. So in this case, I have a directory called empty convex. So once this is done installing, I don't want to use npm, so I'm going to just clear that. So you can see we have empty convex here with this. So I don't want to use that. So but I don't need this too. What I need is convex that I created initially. So I will delete this convex directory. I'll rename this to convex. Technically, what I could have done was just not create the convex directory initially, right? Then inside the packages, I just create a new convex application and call the name of the app what convex. That's all. So you notice that from the convex here, I have another convex directory, right? This convex directory is the actual convex implementation. The reason why I'm naming the package convex is so that I can use it in my app somehow like this. Let me pick one file so that I can use it some like this in one of my application API from at empty slash convex. I want to have this. I want to be able to reference stuff like this. So I'm basically saying this is the repository name, or the organization name rather. This is the package I'm using, even though it's an internal package. I'm not creating an external package now that's going to npm, even though I can create that as a package, private package that can be installed across board. But this is internal for a monorepo, so it makes sense. So this is what I want to achieve. So this is what I'm trying to replicate here. So in this case, I have packages convex. So the convex is the slash convex I want to use. So for this to work, I need to do one thing. I need to expose a file called index.ts in this case. So index.ts is where I have my general exports. So I'm going to export whatever I need. In this case, because I'm using a convex, I need API definitely. So I need that from oh, yeah. So I need this, not that, what did I do? So from this, I need it from convex, then slash generated. Then from one more place, I need it from API, right? So this is what I need. This is what I want to export. But then I can export other things like components and internal, because I might decide to use any of this. But it just depends. You can expose everything you want. So in this case, I'm exposing what I need here, and this becomes my entry file. So for me to do that, I need to go here and add the entry file here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the I'm going to go here and add the main to be index.ts, and the types to be, you know what, I'm just going to do this, types to be index.txt, and that's it. So the version, you can call it version 0.0.1. So as you improve more stuff, you have more version to it. Do you understand? It's basically what it is. It's not something crazy. So because I want to use something like this that I showed the other time, I have to change the name to empty slash convex. So I'm going to do something like this, empty slash convex. Instead, I'm going to add the star here, the at symbol. So basically, this is just the name. So it's just this name that I have here that I'm going to be using here. So you have like a name that you want to use up front. You can always change it. It depends, but it's good to have a consistent name for all of them for your package, so that every app that is depending on it, that by apps I mean the mobile, the web, the extension, uses that same namespace, right? So that's that. So the last thing we need to do here, remember I've not installed anything here. I could install this, it doesn't matter. So we can test it out. But one thing we can do, let's, you know what, let's test it out, right? um Before we test it out, let's create one last thing. I'm going to create something called a pmpm workspace.yaml file like this, and this becomes my packages, because I want to use the packages. I'm going to specify packages and apps like this. So this is what I'm this if I have libs, the way you saw the library also like for autocomplete. If I have other stuff I want to use, the shared and all of those, I could use it like I could specify them in the pmpm workspace too. But now that we've done it this far, I'm trying to rush this without making it too long so you guys can understand. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have this here, the packages, right, and I have my index defined, I need to do one more thing. One more thing I need to do is, okay, fine. This is cool for now. Let's test our applications out to be sure they work. So I'm going to go back to apps. I'm going to go back to mobile because I'm going to pm this. You know what? I'm not going to do that because we have this defined already, the packages. So that means I could basically just do pm install from here, um from the root, and you should install everything I have from packages and apps. So we can test that out. Currently you see that there's no convex, there's no node md file here, and there's no node modules here anywhere too. So if everything goes well, once I run pm install, it should work. So if I do pm install, it should pick everything from the packages, from the apps, and install all of that basically. So we can test that to see if it works. Okay, this is fine. What does it add to it? You can see there's a py log file. You can see in the convex there's a node modules automatically added, and not, you can also see from the web. Okay, there's no node modules, not from the mobile. Okay, yeah, so this is the reason. You can see packages is just packages slash this. So, and this is just one level. But for your apps that are two levels, as you can see, there's mobile, then there's inside mobile, there's nothing to use, like a package.json file. It's inside the nested directory also. So for that, I have to just specify something like this, and that should fix it. So currently we do not have node modules in any of the apps like we just saw now. So if I reinstall this, you can see scope all three workspace projects. So now it's scoping all the three. So that means, like I said, we make mistakes, we fix the mistakes, and we move from there. So now that this is done, I scope all the three workspace projects, and once I scope all the projects, it should install the node modules here once it's done. So it means it's going to install what is inside of this, it's going to install what is inside of this, that's for the web and for the mobile application. And once that is done, you will see, yeah, something like this. So if you have no, yeah, so you can see there's node modules here, there's node modules here now. So that means everything has been installed to work fine. And we can test that out to be sure it works. So how do we test that? I'm going to go to, so one way we can test that is we can have like a pm the JSON file here that starts the mobile and the web. But I don't want to do that. Let's just do the normal way first of all. So I'm going to go to apps slash mobile slash empty app like this, and then I'm going to do npx expo start. But before the expo start, there's something I always like to do for my expo application. I have to add this slash c. So I'm just going to start this so that it clears the cache every time I run the app. So I'm going to say yes, and once this starts, I believe I have an emulator running here. So I'm going to start the emulator using my A Android by using A here. So you can see this works fine, no issues. So let's start the web applications also. Apps web, mt web. Yeah. So if you do this, we have pm dev, since it's a React router application, so that should work fine. So this is 5174. So if I'm not mistaken, let's start localhost 5174, and you can see I have this. So that means everything works fine. So also the same thing should apply to convex. If I go to packages, since I'm using packages slash convex, right, that should work also. So what I can do here is I can also say npx, but because my convex here is packages slash convex, you can see here, so I can ls here, and ls here, you can see I have convex here. So if I do this, I can do nps convex dev, but I have to configure the convex to be able to work, like choose an existing project or create a new one. So I don't want to do any of those things, so I'm not starting convex. I'm trying to keep this simple. So do you understand? So it works. If not, it won't show this. So that's fine. So we have everything defined, and we can see, we can click this, we can do all of those things. Everything works. Explore. What happened? Okay, that works. So I think it's just the app itself. So one last thing to be able to reference what we need, right? So I can move on from this is to, one last thing we can now do is here we can now use the explore, we can use the welcome, explore, welcome, it works. So now the last thing is for us to be able to use the empty convex, right? We said we want to be able to use it from here like this. Currently, you can see it complains, cannot find the module or the corresponding type declaration because yeah, it can't find it. It doesn't know where to pick it from. So just like you will normally install a package from from npm registry, right? You want to do the same thing here. So you want to basically do empty convex like this workspace. So once you do that, it should be available to you automatically. So, but you can see automatically this tells me to update my dependencies. So if I go back to the index.txt that was complaining just now, all I need to do is just go back to this and pm again. It's going to scope all the workspace project. It's going to install what is necessary, and this should fix it automatically. And you can see all this is gone. So now I can use it this way, like this, from here, and I have access to all. If I have an actual convex project, I have access to everything I need from here. The same thing applies to the web. If you go back to the web here also, you can see, let's pick one. Let's pick one. Let's go to the, not root, let's go to welcome. I think welcome is what is showing here. So I can also do the same thing. I can do import API from empty slash convex. But remember, it's not going to work yet. Why? Because we've not added it to the package or JSON file. Exactly. So we need to do the same thing. Empty convex like this, workspace like this, and we're good. So if you do the same thing, we need to go and install. You can see it's telling me to reinstall again. I install again. Now you can see everything I'm installing here is from the root, because everything is configured to work as one particular project, it's going to just install it across board. So if I go back to the welcome, it clears the error, and automatically I should be able to use this, and I can use it well. So if I have other packages that I want to use, internal packages. So let's say we have another package that connects to another database entirely, not convex. So let's say we have like Planet Scale, for instance. All I need to do is create a package, Planet Scale, like this, install everything in Planet Scale, go to my installing. Let's say I go to Planet Scale like this. I'm going to do that now. Packages like this. I'm going to do pm init like this, something simple. So I'm going to go to pm init in Planet Scale and add package or JSON, but that's not going to be the only thing I'm going to do. I'm going to just say index is index.ts, right? I can do .txt instead. I can add what else? What else did you add to the other one? Nothing crazy at all. So instead, I can do this empty slash Planet Scale, and I can do the same thing by going to the web and do the same thing here, right? And it will prompt me to install again. If I go here to install, I do this, and I go to the web app again because it's installed. I go to the web, where is it? Welcome. I can do the same thing here, even though I'm not exposing anything, right? But I can do this from Planet Scale, and I can remove this because I'm not exposing anything. I can just do this. It's going to complain here because there's nothing to use. There's no entry point. There's nothing. So I can just create an empty point, index.ts from here, not tsx, ts, index.ts, and I'll just say export, I don't know, export, I can just say export. I'm just saying this is basically how you want to do it. So export something from something, right? Do you understand how this is will work? So because I'm not exporting anything, yes, but if I was exporting something from here, that probably will work from this, and I'll just be able to use it like this, and have something like empty slash Planet Scale. You can see it's accessible here, just normally with autocomplete. So the idea is you can have this something like this work across your other packages. As you can see, I just created one without having any meaning, but it still works. So I can add other things to it that makes it work across board. I can have it like this and extend it. So you can have different packages that works across different things. Your web, your mobile apps. You can try to have a native app for iOS. You can create everything inside that place. But just remember that the workspace has to be configured properly, and that is it. So once you do that, you can literally use it anywhere. So this is how I create my own monorepo in 2026. I hope this helps you. I believe this will help someone. So if you like what I've shown you here, and you think there's someone else that needs this, just share it to the person, right? It helps. And also, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments, and share this with someone that might need it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.